Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, go ahead and leave a 5-star review. Thank you so much. I like to read the reviews every so often, so maybe your review will be featured on the show. Quick shout out to some stand-up dates that I'm doing soon. I'll be at the Stress Factory in Bridgeport, Connecticut, October 29th. There'll be 2 shows, 7:30 and 9:30. So get tickets to that. I would love to see you guys out in Bridgeport. And then I'm doing a show in Jersey, Saturday, November 6th. It's going to be at the Dojo of Comedy, Tiff's Ale House in Morris Plains, New Jersey. So that'll be the next 2 big shows that I'm excited to do. And then, yeah, keep tagging me, tag your favorite clubs. I always like to learn about new venues, and especially if they don't require vaccines, because that's my jam right now. Yeah, quick shout out to our sponsor, Jerome. We got, I don't know how many of you guys are single, but it's getting to be cuffing season. It's getting to be that time of year where you need to find somebody who has a generator or a good heater or a lot of sweaters, because you know how it is come winter. But a lot of you are probably on these face swiping apps. You're probably on apps where they tell you they have expert matching systems or whatever. And a lot of times it feels like a waste of time. Drome is a new values-based matching system where you can put your deal breakers and deal makers. And then as soon as somebody matches with your deal breakers and deal makers, you get a notification. It's video only, which it can only lead to more human interaction. And I like it because it's free and it's values based. So, odds are you're not going to get along with somebody who's a total leftist or, a twat. What's the difference, right? But, somebody can change to meet you where you are in terms of, values. But I think that's more difficult, and it's better to just meet somebody who matches you up right away, find that perfect match right out the gate. Make sure your values link up. So go to drome.date/CMP, put that in your iPhone browser and click the download button to install. And yeah, use the invite code CMP. It's free to use. You guys have nothing to lose. Try it out. Let me know what you think of it. Cool. This was great. Are you guys enjoying my hotel background? I am. I don't hate it. I don't mind it at all. I'm very excited to have this gal on the podcast today. She's very cool. I'm a big fan. She's a YouTuber. She likes to make people angry. She likes to poke at the status quo. She's a hot blonde. She's wearing a cute top today, and I didn't even have to tell her to. That's how you know she's gonna be a great guest. Ashton Birdie, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. I'm gonna put you over here so that it looks like we're looking at each other. Oh, okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm always really impressed when I come across women like you, because it feels like you have figured things out so quickly.
I haven't.
And it gives okay.
I'm still figuring it out.
It's good to have humility, but you figured out a couple of basic things. And I guess I can only compare it to myself, because when I was in college, and even really honestly until probably I was 30 years old, I was like kind of a lefty. I was in the clouds. I wasn't ever following the money. I was never questioning authority. I just thought, like, I was a default leftist right out of college. Like, everybody who's heard this podcast kind of knows my deal by now. Like, I just was kind of brainwashed. My friends were all in Students for Social Justice Club. I was going to protests and shit. I didn't even know I was protesting. And I didn't have any friends who were challenging me. So I kind of stayed that way for a while. And so it's always really cool when I meet and come across women like you. And there's a few other gals like Ashley St. Clair or like Lauren Southern or like Isabella Riley, who I'm like, wow, you're so smart, you're articulate, and you can just you really do, you make people think. And of course it helps for social media to be like hot, but obviously you're so much more than that. So I'm so curious about your story, how you kind of, if you want to explain kind of like how you got to this point, maybe, do you attribute it to your upbringing or your friends, or I'm so curious.
It's to point out really quickly is that I have gone through many phases in my political career, many ideologue phases, I should really properly say. But I think it definitely begins when I was about 13 years old. I was not the most popular kid growing up. My parents are actually both what I call white wine leftists. They're very much, they love their CNN.
I love that. Oh my God, did you make that up?
Well, yeah. Well, I think I actually heard from somewhere, so I can't take credit for it.
White wine leftist. My
White
God.
wine leftist, yeah. And it's funny, and I call them that is because look, I love my dad. My mom and I don't have the best relationship, but I love my dad. He's a total, he's a total hippie. But they're both very much like they love their CNN. My mom thinks Dr. Fauci is God. They both work for big pharma essentially. My dad's a pharmacist.
They're both pharmacists. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where right now is a very hot topic time. It definitely isn't as bad as during the Trump era. We actually stopped talking for 2 years because of my support for Trump. But I think where it really hit me when I was younger was because I didn't have a lot of friends. I was kind of a weird kid. I'm still a pretty weird kid, honestly. So I spent a lot of time online. And back when I was 13, the internet is not like what it is now. It wasn't as whitewashed. It's not as sanitized. So when I was 13 years old, I found like videos of Tim Pool running the streets of New York. I think I was about like 16 when Occupy Wall Street was going down.
When you're first discovering Tim Pool, what year was this?
Well, my first discovery actually wasn't Tim Pool. It was actually Alex Jones. So I found Alex Jones through a link on YouTube. It was put on a World of Warcraft forum because I used to play World of Warcraft nonstop, like constantly. And that's actually how I found Alex Jones. That's sort of like what got me excited at the time. It was just a meme, like, this guy's angry. I'm angry too. But it really was informative in a sense of Obama had just become president. And this was a guy who was like, you don't have to choose between Obama and McCain. You don't have to choose between the two. And so that kind of like really put a light bulb in my head because I remember my parents were in love with Obama at the time. And then the second round of Obama, it was kind of like, I was a little older and had a better understanding of what was going on. At this time, I was watching Tim Pool during Occupy Wall Street. I was paying attention to what was happening with things like Snowden and Ross Ulbricht and Julian Assange. And I think around the second time for Obama, I think I was a junior in high school. That's when I really started getting involved. And my parents were just like, oh, we're going to vote for Obama a second term. I'm like, you guys literally constantly talk to me about how you guys stood against Vietnam and you're going to vote for the guy who sent in drone strikes? That makes sense. And so it just really made me understand that a lot of things to do with politics, it wasn't so much based on values anymore. It was very much based on parties and who you clarified allegiance to, and especially what the media was telling people, because again, the internet at the time when I was a teenager was not as sanitized as now. So while my parents were watching CNN, ABC, Fox News, I was watching YouTube. That's where I got all of my information. I was getting more information in politics from World of Warcraft links on World of Warcraft forums than you would watch just sitting in front of your TV. So I was watching on the ground footage from Occupy Wall Street. I was actually watching what was going on with people like Snowden, Assange, things that they weren't talking about on Fox News or CNN. And I remember I was really lucky to have a really awesome history teacher in high school. And she actually brought up Snowden, not for a long period of time, but she brought up Snowden and asked a really important question to our class, which I'm surprised she didn't get fired for. She asked, is he an American traitor? Or is he an American hero? And that's sort of like what really got me interested in everything as well. And so I was really lucky enough to have that teacher in my life. I was also very fortunate to have a math teacher who actually taught us what taxes meant.
Wow.
And later on,
where'd you grow up? California?
I grew up the Bay Area. I was born and raised in Berkeley, California, and then I went to high school in a small town just outside of the SF Bay Area. But I was very fortunate to grow up with people who asked a lot of questions. Now, granted, I don't think these same people would ask these same questions during the Trump era, which brought me to my time in college, when if you were a cis white man, you were automatically Hitler, you were automatically the devil. So, of course, I wish I hadn't, but I put on the red Trump hat, and that became basically my entire personality. And while I do, I do have issues with a lot of things with the Trump administration, and there's a whole video on my YouTube channel of me literally burning a Trump hat. I actually gave up. Yeah, it pissed off a lot of people, especially when a lot of my audience does come from the MAGA days, and a lot of people are like, "Well, how could you do this to us?" And look, I'm not.
What's your kind of biggest present day, or I know I want people to watch that video that you made, but
Yeah.
if you could pick off like your biggest gripe, what made you kind of the most wanting to move away from Trump, or kind of like, oh, you kind of popped the bubble on Trump for you?
Definitely it was the strikes into Syria every single year really just ticked me off. And then on top of that, the fact he didn't pardon Assange or Ulbricht or Snowden, those were like the
I
biggest
thought
things
he
for
was
me.
gonna, yeah.
And a lot of people did. And I remember just sitting there thinking, you know what? Tomorrow is his last day in office. He's gonna do it. He has to do it, like he has nothing to lose at this point. And sure enough, he didn't do it. And I'm like, well, if you're in that position where you have nothing to lose, people made the excuse for him. Well, they threatened his family. They threatened him. It's like,
I heard that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter to me. If you are in the position of being able to pardon the people you promise you're going to pardon, I can't support you anymore. The whole reason I support him over Hillary, well, granted, Hillary's a demon. I'll always stand by the fact that Hillary Clinton's a demon.
I mean, of course, other than that, that's
was the fact that you look back at 2012 and before he even considered politics, he was talking about Obama's drone strikes. He was talking about not being involved in the Middle East. He was talking about, and during his time running, he was talking about what Assange is putting out about Hillary. And so I expected a lot of things to happen that didn't happen. So of course I'm not going to support him for a second term. Of course, in fact, I don't think I actually believe in voting anymore at all. I don't think voting actually gets anything done. A lot of people disagree with me on that. A lot of people want to keep playing the party politics. And look, I'm a huge fan of people like Ron Paul, Rand Paul. I stand by a lot of libertarian values.
RuPaul even is great. But
even the Libertarian Party is falling apart because they're casting out people for saying mean words. And as somebody who literally got her start, especially here on YouTube, I'm not sure where this is streaming right now, but on YouTube in general, it was a free speech. I stand by the factor of free speech. I stand by, people being able to say what they want to say. I may not agree with you, but I think you should be able to say it. As far left, as far right as you want to go. I may not agree with it, and then that's what the First Amendment.
Exactly. Let people decide. If people deem you an untrustworthy news source, then they're going to move on. It should never be up to the platform or even like individuals to be able to ban or nuke somebody's account. Like that's how I got really activated was free speech and comedy. So it's pretty crazy. So you had a couple of teachers that helped you open up your mind at a young age. And then you went to UC Berkeley and you were telling me before that you kind of helped expose them. Do you mean just kind of expose their kind of anti,
it was
white men?
It was a lot of the professors that were going there. So there was one particular professor who, for example, he told his class that the reason why the Asians eat white rice is because they want to be more like the Europeans, despite the fact that Asians and especially the Chinese have been cultivating white rice long before even getting in contact with the Europeans. Just things like that. And then I exposed the Berkeley. I can't say I took all the credit, but I helped expose the Berkeley mayor for telling the police to stand down. So I just thought one thing, for example, that I always found very strange about the MAGA movement is this Blue Lives Matter type, the whole We Love Our Cops movement. I never fully understood was that if you were at these Battle of Berkeley, if you were actually there on the ground, a lot of people then red hats and red MAGA hats would stop by the police officers and go, "Thank you for your service, officer," despite the fact that these police had full-blown shields, they had their batons, and they were just watching people get their skulls bashed in. How is that doing a service for the American people? And I've done a video on this recently where the police have no constitutional duty to protect you.
I think a lot of people just feel like it's the right thing to say. I think most people are not looking into these issues as deeply as like you and I are. I think I think the majority of people are just like, they are like, all right, am I feeding my kids? Am I making enough money for my family? All right. Like they just, and it still feels like, oh, support the troops still feels like the right thing to say. And it's harder to be like, well, everyone always know good cops. There are always examples of good cops, but
right. But just because someone is doing their job doesn't mean it's the right job. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't, when it comes down to it, who's going to be at your door to take your guns away? who's the one who's going to push the vaccine mandates if you won't comply? You have to really look into that. Who are the foot soldiers? So when we're getting this deep into people being forced to comply to something that is unconstitutional, and let me just say this about the Constitution, I don't necessarily support the Constitution, not because I disagree with it, but because I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I have the right to protect myself or I have the right to say what I want to say. I'm not going to let the government or a piece of paper implemented by the government tell me that I have these God-given rights. I know I'm born with these God-given rights. I don't need a piece of paper the government says, well, this is what you're allowed to have. No, I know I'm allowed to have these things. And when you have a piece of paper like the Constitution out there, saying I have these rights, under the name of the government, under the guise of the government, that gives the government the incentive to go into the Constitution and say, let's write here and here and here. Let's change this, this, and this, which is already happening. Anyway, the point being, I don't see how I'm at the point of, after watching the election, after watching what Trump did in his last few days of office, watching what's happening with the whole Back the Blue movement involving the vaccine mandates and whatnot, and just watching everything just fall apart, it's turned me more and more into an anarchist. I just don't believe in sense of the state anymore, because what's the point if the state isn't actually going to do anything? We put our tax money, we get our tax dollars putting towards something, and people say, oh, well, the taxes pay for the roads, but then you see the roads are still falling apart. You know what I'm saying? That's basically a perfect example of the entire government. I pay taxes and I comply to the state, only for the state to slap me back in the face.
So have you begun to sort of look into places to move or places to live where you could get as close to this as possible?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm currently living in Florida, but even then, I'm not going to trust DeSantis. I'm not going to trust anyone in office, because once you give someone an inch of power, they're going to take a leap. So my ideal way of life is definitely, I'm looking at New Hampshire with the Free State Project. I definitely appreciate what they're doing out there. I'm just in Florida for now because it's a good escape away from California, where I've lived the majority of my life. I love Florida. I like the fact that it doesn't have the same mandates as California, but I recognize that this is only a temporary solution. I am looking at New Hampshire because there actually seems to be a growing community out in New Hampshire for a Free State Project. I really think that is the ultimate answer, is to build some sense of community away from the state overall. Not so much the state of New Hampshire, but one that happens to be in New Hampshire. I think it's going to overtake New Hampshire. New Hampshire's already talking about seceding from the Union. So,
wow. Yeah, I hear they talk about it on Tim Pool all the time. Every time I turn it on, someone's talking about New Hampshire. So I guess it's definitely up there for good places to live. When did you move from California to Florida?
I have been officially a Floridian for the past week. So
wow, my God,
it is official.
Fresh.
It's official. I know
there.
I'm fresh here, which is why my entire life is currently a mess. I mean, my life has always been a mess, but I have an excuse for it now.
Good. Go say hi to my dad. Yeah, that's good. Florida's great. It's a lot of good people down there in Florida. So InfoWars was if you're going to attribute anything to your kind of like awakening or whatever, red pilling, it would be InfoWars. And then I think at one point, is it possible that you were going to work there, or you were interested in working there?
I did an on-the-ground thing with them, which of course led into a giant leftist meme where I said they're eating rats in Venezuela, which I still stand by. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was very awkward. That was my first on-the-ground reporting. I had never done that before my entire life. I wasn't planning to ever really do that. It was scary. Yeah. It was terrifying. Could I have said something much smarter? Regards to a debate, in regards to explaining why socialism is horrible? Absolutely. That was the first thing that popped in my head, and you know what? I still stand by it, because they are in fact still eating rats in Venezuela. Now, is it the proper argument against socialism? No, but I was young, I was new to it, and
it's hard to approach people on the street. It's like it's nerve-wracking as hell. Like I'll perform in front of hundreds of people before I approach one person on the street. Like, that man on the street stuff is like, I give you such credit, because I'm always like, this person already hates me, like.
Yeah, no. And it's one of those things where I also feel like, I still have so much to learn even to this day. It's funny you mentioned like I have it figured out, because I really don't have it figured out. I kind of wanted to sort of make that aware coming back to YouTube, because I did take quite a bit of a break, because I'm still learning. I'm still figuring things out. I'm still thinking, people are going to debate me on certain things. People might have answers that I may not have. And, there's going to be times where I'm wrong about things, and that's perfectly okay. And I think for a long time in politics, people were afraid of being wrong. And that's just so silly to me because I'm 26 years old. There are people who
You're
are
a
80 years
baby.
old.
Yeah.
Exactly. There are people who are 80 years old and are still learning things and doing new things. And that's perfectly fine. And we're all sort of going through our own battles in life and discovering new things. And that's the whole point. I never once ever called myself a political expert. I'm not going to. I'm never running for office. As an anarchist, I don't plan to ever. And I know for a fact that the views that I have today could change tomorrow for all I know. I really don't know, because at the end of the day, all of this is just me learning and me developing and me trying to find the truth and figuring things out. This isn't me, trying to, say that I know this about this and this and this. This is sort of just me exposing my own learning process out into the world. And I think once we recognize, hey, it's okay to be wrong sometimes, it gets a little less scary,
Of course. And I think you don't even need to say all that, which makes me think, like, was there and I thought to like really Google and research you, like, of course, watched podcasts and things and like got familiar. And I was like, all right, I gotta like really I have this impulse before I interview everybody. Like, I really gotta research and be like an expert on this person. And then I'm like, oh, like, and I saw like a couple bad things, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, like, this is like, if you were to Google me, you would see bad things, because anybody who's trying to like poke at the status quo is like, you're gonna have people coming after you and writing shit about you online and calling you horrible names. And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna like talk to this girl and like see where she's at today. And it's almost like, from what you were saying before, it's like, do you feel like you have to be defensive for things you said in the past? Do you feel like people came too harshly for you?
Yes and no. So there are definitely things I feel like people still want me to explain and go about, but I feel like when people get to know me now, they recognize, things are different. I'm a firm believer people change every single day and develop themselves every single day. And there's also things from my past that there are stories out there about me. There have been lies said about me that people just believe. Or, there are rumors, there's gossip, all kinds of things. And I just recognize that people are going to believe what they want to believe. People are going to assume the worst about me or the best about me. And there's nothing I can do about it sometimes. The best I can do is just be myself, be who I am. If people ask me questions about something, I'm going to answer as honestly as possible. But I do want to make apparent to everyone there is always two sides to every story. And there's also a lot of information that I and many people out there still don't know about the world. And there's many things that a lot of people don't know about me, but whether the people choose to judge me about certain things is their choice. There's nothing I can do about it. And frankly, I don't care to do anything about it, because the internet's not a real place. I'm just gonna straight up say it. The internet is
except
not
for my channel, though. What do you think are the biggest lies that are currently circulating about you, or like the biggest, like, what bothers you the most right now that
there's this one lie that I was recently made aware of. I'm worth over $100 million, which is definitely not true. There's many lies where people claim that I have people make assumptions about my body count online. People,
like how many people you've slept with? Who cares?
Yeah, there's people who make assumptions about people, situations, my dating situations from the past, which I mean, look, I've got a restraining order against one ex-boyfriend who consistently brings up my name because, let's be honest, I'm the only interesting about his life ever.
Wow.
And it's I've been through some crazy stuff, but at the same time, it's sort of exciting sometimes, like the lore behind who I am. People just like assume I'm like this crazy swamp witch who lives in the middle of the swamps and like cooks up potions about people. It's sort of like living like that. And so it gets to the point where nothing about it really bothers me. It's more so entertaining that people believe these crazy, wild things about me. And I just do what I gotta do. And I'm just myself. And I've attested to a lot of things that people have accused me of, publicly, privately. And I don't really need to address a lot of it, because if it's not true, it's not true. I just simply gotta be who I am and focus on the things that matter to me. Because again, the internet's not a real place.
Yeah, it's good to see you have such confidence, and like that's like kind of what I aspire to be, because I hate feeling misunderstood. Like, there was a comic, like a fellow lady New York City comic who I did an impression of, and she misconstrued it to the extent that she actually and I feel like she was just putting this out there for like victim points, but like
Mhm.
she's out there telling people like, oh, well, Chrissie is encouraging people to harass me. And I'm just like, whoa, it just, the story got so twisted. And it really, like, some days I would be like, fuck it. If people want to know, they can ask me. But then, like, some days it really would bother me because I'd be like, oh, this chick is in people's ears at festivals and at Comedy Central. And like, there probably are people that think horrible things about me
It's
currently.
to the point where it's like people you want to network with, you're worried that they're going to think these things about you.
Yeah,
But
you never want to miss an opportunity because of
right.
like a rumor or a lie. It can be a little
I
scary.
definitely used to worry a lot about what people thought about me. I used to watch streams where I was afraid that people were talking about me. I used to just freak out assuming everyone in the world thought I was like the worst. I just assumed everybody hated me. But when you sort of just let that go and like know who you are as a person and just develop that, look, I'm still developing it. I'm not like some like great guru who knows exactly what she's talking about. But
You're
when you
my
just
guru.
focus when you just focus on who you are as a person, that's when everything starts to calm down. That's when everything, because you don't care anymore. And you don't worry about what people think about you because you sort of just recognize that, hey, if you just focus on yourself, focus on what makes you happy, none of this internet stuff matters. It really doesn't. People are always going to talk bad about you. Here's a little secret to life, okay? And this is something I went through as a kid because I used to get bullied all the time. I was the weird blue-haired
Over
punk
what? Oh,
rocker.
you had blue hair? Well, you
I had
brought that
blue
on
hair.
yourself.
I had blue hair. I used to skateboard
Mhm.
everywhere. I wore boys' clothes. I was a drummer in a punk rock band. I was into Alex Jones in high school. I thought I was into all this stuff.
Sounds like you were cool in high school.
I was the well, when you're at a school and like actually was I really like unpopular? I think it's funny though when you're in high school, if like you got like that one group of girls that doesn't like you, you automatically assume that nobody
True.
likes you. I feel like that's
True.
very
And
apparent
those
to
girls
the
don't like themselves, and that's what that's about.
it's
Yeah.
very apparent to the internet world because I had cheerleaders and like football players who thought I was pretty fun to hang out with, but it was always that group of girls who made my life a living hell. And I assumed that everybody hated me. But here's the trick is that there's always going to be that group of mean girls in your life. There's always going to be some bullies who talk bad about you. And even when you're 80 years old living in a nursing home, there's going to be some chick named Janet down the hall saying, "Oh, look at that. Look at Chrissy's knitting. Isn't
Fucking
it just
Janet.
terrible?" Freaking Janet.
And
It's just like
I'm gonna be banging her 80-year-old boyfriend because that's what happens in these nursing homes. They get
you know,
horny and they all get chlamydia. Quick super chat from Sunny James. What's your thought about Bolsonaro MP, the president of Brazil, who is adhering to the constitution, ironically more than us? We might have to pick between eating rats and freedom of choice. What guides that through?
Well, they're
God
not eating rats in
article.
Brazil, they're eating rats in Venezuela. Um,
Same difference.
it's all South America, right? We gotta save the South American rats over here. Uh, but I definitely feel like I actually don't know much about Brazil. I
I
know
don't
Brazil
know
was a
anything.
hot topic about 3 years ago. Actually, I remember Brazil was all over the news. Um, when it comes, I'm gonna assume they're talking about the mandates over there. Well, to be honest, I don't think America has ever really followed their constitution, not for at least a
Mhm.
long time. If you watch any videos I've done recently, I recently did a video on the U.S. banking institution, and I firmly believe that the U.S. has not followed the founding fathers' principles since 1913. I stand by that topic. I really don't think even our president has a choice in what actually happens. I think there's something much deeper and darker going on. I think it all leads back to the banks. So pay attention to what happens every day, everything that's going on. I think it leads back to the banks, whether it be with the war, whether it be who is being lobbied, et cetera, et cetera. Do research on the banks because that's what we really need to be focusing on.
Yes, I'm glad you knew the answer to that question because I was going to be like, look, the only thing Brazilian that I can speak on are the waxes, as we all know.
I'm
So,
going to assume it's on the mandates because I think Brazil is being much lenient than the US is. But even then, I don't think even before the lockdowns and whatnot, I don't think the US has followed its own constitution and its own values by the founding fathers since at least 1913, because that's when the Federal Reserve System was institutionalized by Woodrow Wilson, and that's when things really got bad.
okay, awesome. From Brie Larson's favorite panacea, is it true you strangle puppies for fun? Is this a troll?
That is definitely not true. However,
Okay.
Chihuahuas freak me out like no other. I will not strangle a Chihuahua, but I will run as far away from them as I possibly can because
They
they freak me
definitely
out.
have anger issues, and I think it just reminds me of every short man I've dated, and it's like, relax, just you need to accept your
You know
size
what?
and
The
work on
short
your
man syndrome is very true because every short man
Mhm.
I've dated has been psychotic.
And they don't need
Oh
to
my
be. Like,
gosh.
it's not the end of the world. It's being
It's
short is no
okay.
big
You're
deal.
only 5'8". It's okay. You're gonna
5'8",
survive.
that's fine. All right, Robert B, thanks for the super chat. Okay, from
I mean,
Sunny
I like my men
James.
tall, so
How tall? What's like your ideal height?
I do like at least 5'11", 6 foot,
5'11"?
6'1", 6'2" if you can get me a 6'2" guy, you know
A
what I'm
little
saying?
extra. I can get you one. I can get you a 6'2", there's probably some in this chat right now. From Sunny James, I meant freedom of thought, not choice. I always like when people come back with a super chat to clarify something, or if I just
Mhm.
fuck up and can read something. Brie Larson's back. Someone needs to start eating the rats in New York. Man, I think the rats are eating themselves.
Oh my
It's
god, I think the rats are eating the people out there right now.
yeah, New York City. It's I enjoy going in once a week and checking in on it and seeing how bad
Are
things
you
have
still
gotten.
based in New York? Like, what's it
Yeah,
like out
yes.
there?
I go in once a week to do my compound media show. It's just the restaurants are dead. The people are back, but like it's
Because
not
no one wants
thriving.
to poison themselves to go in.
It's not thriving. It's the soul has been sucked out of it, and it's interesting. It's interesting to watch it all unfold. We have something in common, Ashton. We both have had run-ins with Chrissy Teigen. We have both had Chrissy Teigen
Oh,
drama.
the
That's why I laughed
tea
so hard
behind
when you
Chrissy Teigen.
tweeted I'm going live with Chrissy Teigen. I was dying laughing and then I was kind of looking up
Chrissy Teigen
yeah.
hates me and she doesn't understand
How did this
memes.
go
Oh my
down?
gosh. Can we please talk about the TV? Oh yes, fantastic. Okay,
Okay.
so Chrissy Teigen, she is my second nemesis. Okay.
Ooh.
First it's Will Wheaton. He hates me even more than Chrissy Teigen. Oh my gosh, I keep snacking this. I'm still figuring out the whole like podcast world. Okay,
Oh.
so Chrissy Teigen, she came at me because do you remember like years ago when the Kentucky Planned Parenthood posted, "We need a Disney princess with a prosthetic arm. We need a Disney princess who's had an abortion. We need a Disney princess who blah 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 blah." All this
Yeah, I do
crazy
remember
stuff.
that.
And I was like right by Disneyland when that tweet went out and I had a MAGA hat with me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh. We need a Disney princess who's MAGA. We need a Disney princess who's pro 2A. We need a Disney princess who's pro the wall." And it was an obvious meme. Okay. I don't actually think we need a Disney princess who does all that stuff. I mean, we kind of already do because Mulan supports the wall, right? You know? So,
And I think Belle is like 2. I think Belle is like pretty like 2A. I think she's about, I think the Little Mermaid, we don't know what's going on under those fins. You know what I mean? Like she probably
well,
keeps
it's just
who
funny because we've
knows.
got all of these Disney princesses who you see like, and Jasmine's like, not the point, not the point. It was a whole troll. It was the whole point. It wasn't actually like
Yeah, it
me
was just a
saying, "Hey,
picture. You took a picture with
we
you
need a
and
MAGA Disney princess,"
you were next to
And
Cinderella and you had a red MAGA hat on.
it wasn't just that, it was me from the castle as well, but I basically said this whole, like, thing to make fun of the Kentucky Planned Parenthood, and it went viral so quick. It went crazy.
Wow.
So the chick who played the Mary Poppins at Disneyland found out about it, and she, like, freaked out on me, which makes me really sad because Mary Poppins is my favorite Disney character of all time. But then
Did
Chrissy
she get her
Teigen
umbrella out and then like fly away upset? God dang you.
But Chrissy Teigen found out the tweet and she was like, "I thought Disney movies were just about singing with cartoon animals." And it popped off so quick. And then I was like, "I'm gonna fight back Chrissy Teigen. This is great. I'm gonna do it." Because here's the thing: is that people made fun of me for caring about Chrissy Teigen responding to it. But here's the thing: if I'm like a nobody, in the world of like people, this is back when I had like 40,000 subscribers, or sorry, 40,000 followers on Twitter before I got banned, my last account.
Oh,
Yeah,
pretty
Jack
good though.
Yeah, but now Jack Dorsey's into Bitcoin, so apparently, he's cool now, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's like, why couldn't he be into like Rothbard like 3 years ago? Because all my best tweets were back then. But yeah, so I responded to Chrissy Teigen and I called her like an elitist puppet, basically. And then she responded back, purposely misspelling my name because, and people were like, "Ashton Birdie cares so much about what Chrissy Teigen says." And it's like, this is a chick who has like 50 million followers on Twitter, responding to a literal nobody in a MAGA hat. I'm going to milk this. This is hilarious.
Were you even verified?
No, I've never been verified in my entire life. I've always been
girl.
I've always been a Twitter nobody.
Same.
But it was just really entertaining to me. So she is my second arch nemesis after Wil Wheaton. Wil Wheaton, I think, especially hates me. He's actually the reason I got banned on Twitter in the first place. I wouldn't be surprised.
Is it bad that I don't know who Wil Wheaton is? I've heard the
name.
He
played Wesley, so the Star Trek nerd in me is going to come out. So I actually do not like Next Generation Star Trek. I actually prefer the original series because I'm sorry, but Captain Kirk will always be Picard in a wrestling match. Just the fact of life. Especially look at what's happening with our good old Captain Kirk now. He's actually going to space. But Wil Wheaton played Wesley on the Next Generation, and Wil Wheaton was saying some crazy stuff back in I think like 2017, 2018, and my first reaction was to respond with "Shut up, Wesley." It was like the whole thing. And next thing I know, everyone else is, I don't think I started it, but I definitely feel like I would like to think I did. But everyone else started saying, "Shut up, Wesley, shut up, Wesley, shut up, Wesley," to everything he tweeted. And he came at me. Out of everyone who tweeted at him, he started like tweeting about me. Like, this tiny blonde fascist, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
And then I started just responding back with "Shut up, Wesley," like every time he tweeted at me.
A tiny blonde fascist.
So then he wrote out on Twitter. So I think he started like this whole algorithm or whatever, where anytime someone said the words "Shut up, Wesley," or posted a certain GIF with Picard saying "Shut up, Wesley," they would be automatically blocked.
Wow.
The problem with this is that when he did that, even the Star Trek fan pages and the Star Trek Twitter pages ended up getting blocked on accident. So he got super angry, and then he continued to tweet about me despite me being blocked. It was a great day for me. I really, the fact that I can say that Wil Wheaton from Star Trek Next Generation hates me is kind of definitely something I never imagined would happen. It is. If you're like a legit nerd, like I was the president of my Dungeons and Dragons club at my high school. I played World of Warcraft, and for someone like Wil Wheaton to hate me is kind of an accomplishment as an actual nerd. So it's definitely pretty amazing. Yeah.
So your Chrissy Teigen tweet, was that a response to her, or did she just like pick on you kind of out of nowhere? Did you respond to her tweet with your
No, she
picture?
came after me for my Disneyland picture. So like again, like she found it.
Wow.
And so she made it go viral. So I don't know if she doesn't have a hobby. I know
she should be better than this, right? That's exactly how I felt when she responded to my tweet. It was like a couple summers ago. I was like, aren't
she's got 3
better
kids.
Than this? Yeah.
She's got 3 kids. She had at the time like a whole thing going on with Target. She like writes cookbooks and whatnot. I'm thinking,
R.I.P. Target cook line. Yeah.
does she not have anything better to do than be on Twitter and fight me? I mean, like, it's one thing if I were to tweet at her and then she responded, but no, she came at me, and I thought it was really entertaining. Again, and the tweet wasn't even viral until she made it viral. So I was just thinking, does she just go and look at people in MAGA hats to go after? Or what's going on here? Like, I think maybe she needs to get off the internet. I think her husband needs to take her phone away. Like, everyone jokes about how like Melania needs to take her like Trump's phone away. But like maybe Chrissy Teigen is like a Twitter addict. I wouldn't be surprised.
She's pretty vile. I feel like she has a lot of skeletons in her closet, and that's why she comes so hard for anybody who she feels like is coming from a different kind of like political arena. Wait, quickly from Brie Larson's. Wow, this guy's a big fan. Sounds like this Chrissy person needs a panacea. From Nashbo Jr. MAGA princess is better than MAGA princess. Is this an inside joke? I think.
I don't know, but I love Nash. He makes the funniest memes about me. He makes the best memes. I swear to God. No, when I first like really got big, like, you know, really started popping off, this guy
when was this?
So many. I would say like my channel like really got big in like 2017, 2018. That's when I was most known. 2019 a little bit. But Nash would make the best memes about me. And every year on my birthday, on Valentine's Day, I think sometimes on Christmas, he would send me like full-blown videos. Like, he has made so many amazing memes, making fun of me, praising me. He's like a true fan. He criticizes me, he praises me, he loves me. Nash is just the loveliest person. I honestly feel like I have the best fans. I call them my droogs.
Shout out to Nash. Good job.
Love Nash. I have the best droogs, but Nash is one of the few droogs I have that I recognize. Like, I'll see his name, I'm like, that's Nash. Like, he's come up to me like in person before. He's given me like Guy Fawkes masks to sign, and he's the best. He's actually, and then there's George in England. There's a few others that like have actually come up to me in person. If you guys see me in person, like please do come up and like I love meeting you guys in person. It actually kind of makes me cry a little bit thinking about it. But I really
it's great,
have the
isn't
best
it?
people.
I can't understand people who are, I don't know, maybe you get too famous or too big, and I don't know. I see it every once in a while. People who hate their fans or have any kind of a following. I don't really mean like famous, but
I don't see myself as famous. I just think of it as very strange that people. I mean, I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I just think if people have been with me from the beginning, from the MAGA stuff to even now, and still support me now, I think they're amazing people who just, the fact that they would go on this journey with me of just learning and discovering things is wonderful. But then I'll meet people who followed me through the MAGA stuff and then dropped off because they don't like the fact that I no longer support the MAGA stuff. And they'll still come up to me in person and say, hey, I'm still a Trump supporter, but I just want to let you know I appreciate what you did at Berkeley and whatnot. And even then I love them, because at the end of the day, I really don't believe in this whole left versus right ideologue. I don't believe in, I think people should have different opinions. I think people should follow different ideologies. And that's what's so important, because we should come together and actually bring these ideas together and actually try to make the world a better place. Because even if you are the furthest of left, the furthest of right, communist, socialist, Republican, Democrat, anarchist, libertarian, what have you, at the end of the day, no one wakes up one day and says, time to make the world a horrible place. Nobody wants to be a Disney villain. Everybody wants to make the world a better place. So if we just all come together and try to hash things out and try to figure out what is the best option, I think we could actually do a lot of good. And I don't want to believe in this whole left versus right, Antifa versus MAGA. I don't want to follow that anymore, because I don't think it actually does anything.
It's easy. I think as humans, we want to put people in groups and we want to categorize, and we want to get everybody in a box so we know how to deal with them or how to not deal with them. So I agree with you too. Like people go, oh, you're conservative. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, I think I'm friends with too many porn stars to really truly be a conservative. And then people get upset. And it's like, we don't have to, let's all talk to each other, there was even just like this porn star chick today. A lot of my fans were tweeting at her. Her name's Lacey Lennon, and he's like, oh, do my Lemon, do Chrissy's podcast. Like, I have a couple that are like just huge fans of her, and she like reacted so harshly and so rudely and was like blocking people. She blocked me, and she's just like, oh, I don't owe anybody my time. It's like, okay, like, and I feel like I got upset at first, and I was like, no, like deep down this comes from an insecurity. Like maybe she doesn't think she would be good at a podcast, but whatever. Like, you can't be vile to your fans, like ultimately it's kind of it's a really bad look. And I don't know. Yeah, we should be open to talking to people. And that's I think one of her reasons for not coming on my podcast, because of whatever she thinks I'm like part of the alt-right or whatever she thinks. And I guess it's good. I mean, I think it simplifies things, right? Because then she doesn't have to do a podcast and maybe probably not look so good. But it's okay. It's all good. Okay, so the Chrissy Teigen thing, that was really crazy. Did she end up responding again after?
She responded to me like about 3 or 4 times. Wow. Actually, it went back and forth quite a bit. Not as much as Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton and I have had months of just going off on each other, because at one point he unblocked me just to go after me. Yeah, Will Wheaton, I wouldn't be surprised, is still stalking me to this day. I mean, my goodness.
I will.
Yeah.
We'll get into a Twitter fight with me too. I always like Twitter fighting with people. It's fun. Night Train has no idea who Chrissy Teigen is. That's good. That's probably for the best.
Good for you. You're so lucky. Wait, why is Chrissy Teigen famous? Besides, I know she's a model, and I know the thing about
they paired her up with John Lennon. Like, that was pretty much an arranged marriage. And yeah, just because, not like she's the hottest Sports Illustrated model ever to be. She's like, okay, she's cute, I guess. But I just think
that's the thing is, I never
understood star power with legend. Never.
I never heard of her until I never heard of her really until like she got political, honestly. But maybe it's because I don't really pay attention to celebrities at all. But the thing about Chrissy Teigen is that, or not just Chrissy Teigen, but models. The fact that models can be famous for something is really weird to me. If you're a famous actress, makes sense, because you're a talented actress, you're a talented musician, you're a talented this and this. But to be a model, you're basically just there because you're pretty. And I hate to say it that way, like, no shame to people who model professionally, but you are professionally pretty. And there's nothing much else going on for you. For example, I know there's a model who's helping develop a coding class for people who want to learn how to code. That's something to be famous for. If you're a model plus something, that makes sense. But if you're just a model and someone's wife, it's a little strange to me. It's almost like they're grooming her to be marketed.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, like, and I love your take on Britney Spears too. Like, just it was decided so early. That's how a lot of these celebrities kind of grow into their fame. Like,
And how people just assumed she was crazy. And I think, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I when Britney's story came out, it really hit me hard because what she had gone through, I had gone through a similar situation where people just, they saw one side of the story and made assumptions and just, and I definitely related to like what Britney's story was. Not to that extent, obviously.
Did you have a conservatorship as well?
I didn't have a conservatorship, but I definitely had a person who, I definitely, related
like
to
make
her.
You look bad.
Yes, and related to her aspect of the media and how people would almost poke the bear and attack her and make her feel these horrible things just so she could react to these horrible things, only to make her look worse. And I've been through that situation where bad things were happening to me and people took advantage of it to get something for themselves, for sure, 100%. And I think it's a much bigger problem than people realize, not just in Hollywood and the music industry, but I've seen it happen to other girls in politics as well, and even some males in politics as well. I definitely think there are certain things, both left and right, that a lot of political pundits don't want to address. And when I see a lot of these young women on large stations like Fox News and CNN, and when that one movie came out involving Megyn Kelly's case, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised because, let's be honest here, there are Harvey Weinsteins in the political pundit world, and a lot of us don't want to address it. That's all I'm going to say.
Interesting. I was wondering, like, if this was a person you dated that you said took advantage of you for personal gain, or was it like more of a career thing?
There definitely was a situation where a person I dated definitely took advantage of a hard time that I was going through, and definitely took advantage of personal stuff I was going through, and knew what they were doing and the time that they were doing it. But I'm actually not even talking about that. I'm talking about something much deeper and darker. There are things that happen in that were happening. I'm not sure. I'm not in that world anymore. In the political pundit world, where both left and right, where I've seen women be coerced, and I've seen some men be coerced to not say certain things or say certain things or act a certain way, and in a way be sort of molded into a sort of like character for the world to see.
Interesting. It's like, it sounds like what you're describing is not too dissimilar from what happens to people in Hollywood.
Exactly. Especially in 2017, there was a huge issue with Charlottesville, and everyone was scared of being called an anti-Semite. So what happened was, when people came through, there was definitely a lot of cliquey behavior, not just cliquey behavior, but almost people who were older, especially older males, they would talk to younger people involved with sort of the celebrity political world, what they could and couldn't say, how they should dress. I never owned a push-up bra until politics. I never owned a push-up bra.
Wow,
until
I would
politics.
Be perfect for it. That's my draw is full of those, but that's
that's there was a lot of talk at one point. I was being told what I could eat, what I should wear, what I should. Yeah, there was a solid 2-3 years where a lot of my life was being controlled.
By like a network, or just like your mentors, or like
mentors for sure. Okay. Yeah, I was never really part of a network at one point, just because I didn't like the idea of being part of a network, because I wanted to be able to stick to my own persona, like stick to my own person. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I was still being manufactured by the people around me. I don't think it was so much. I think a lot of it came from fear themselves, because no one wanted to be associated with someone. For example, if I were to say, question the Israeli government, and this still happens all the time. If I say question the Israeli government and the allegiance between the U.S. and the Israeli government, people at the time, and sometimes people still do, automatically jump on that and say, you're an anti-Semite. Really?
And you're like, all I said was question. You're like, I just said ask, yeah.
Well, it's not even just that, but when it comes down to it, the Israeli government has done a lot of things with the U.S. that's very not trustworthy. And most recently, when the U.S. went to Israel and said, "Hey, we would like to buy one of your ports from you, and to have a trade deal in that port," the Israeli government ended up selling it to China for less money than the U.S. offered. How is the Israeli government our greatest ally if they're doing things like that? Now, now this happened, say 3 years ago, back when I was, much, prominent in this world. If I said something like that, they'd automatically say, "Oh, you're an anti-Semite. You can't say things like that."
That's what I keep hearing is there are certain, like, my other friends, like, kind of in media, or not media, alternative media, whatever, say, like, there's just something about, like, Israel that you can't touch it at all, or else people go, "Oh, you're an anti-Semitist."
It's very strange, though, because here's the thing. If you even just touch Israel slightly...
Semitist? Semite. Fuck. You guys know what I mean.
Anti-Semite. Yeah, but the thing is, if you slightly touch Israel and they automatically throw back at you anti-Semite, that only makes me question more, because it's like, if I simply question something and you're just going to throw slurs at me, you're just going to throw derogatory terms at me, that's going to make me think, well, there's something going on here that you don't want me to know.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with conspiracy theorists. I mean, if I question you about the vaccine and you throw conspiracy theorist at me, it's going to make me think,
they want you to shut up.
There's something else going on here.
Why do they want to insult you to get you to shut up? Like,
if
what
I
are you
ask simple questions and bring up information, and all I get back is insults, all I get back is hush, 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 you're this, you're that, here's an insult thrown your way, I'm going to question more. And a lot of people, they get scared. They go, "Oh, no, I'm not a racist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not anti-Semite. I'm a good person just like you. Let me not question anymore. I'm so sorry." And that's the problem, is that when your job is being threatened, when your livelihood is being threatened, when your character is being smeared, a lot of people go run and hide. And that's a huge thing that happened in 2017 and 2018. And it was really sad, because I watched a lot of people who simply ask questions, or as a comedian you would know this, simply make jokes for the sake of them being jokes, have their entire lives ruined.
Yeah, it's horrible. Like, I saw what happened to Gavin McInnes. Like, I kind of became more, had him on the podcast a few times and became, like, got to know him a little bit more. But after his sort of like mega canceling or whatever, and I saw you did like a little interview with him, and when I was researching you, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's like my friends are hanging out."
Gavin McInnes, the story behind Gavin McInnes is so horrible, because what he is being canceled for isn't even his fault. He's being canceled for the actions of someone else that got associated with the group that he started years ago.
As a joke. Yeah.
He does not have... Here's the thing. What happened with the Gavin... I'm just going to hash that out, because I love Gavin McInnes. I'll always stand up for Gavin McInnes. The man's a little crazy, but I love my crazy.
He's hilarious, and he's real smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm a fellow crazy too, so I can't really judge. But the thing about Gavin McInnes is that with Gavin McInnes, it comes down to the fact that he started a group that was supposed to be a drinking club. It was never about
it's like a social club.
Never go out into the streets. It was never about let's go out into the streets and fight Antifa.
It was never going to be an answer to Antifa. It became that. It was like the media sort of twisted it into that, because, as you know, they would escort speakers, like the Ann Coulters of the world, like, that needed to be escorted to speak at schools that they were being paid to speak at. And eventually, over time, the protesters and people would be, try to keep them from doing their jobs, basically.
And it also got down to the point where, where the Proud Boys, Gavin McInnes can't control the actions of other people. It was never supposed to be this legit thing. It started off as a drinking club, and then the wrong people got involved and started painting it as someone else. And let's be honest, if you were involved in politics in 2016 or 2017 or even 2018, politics was the peak LARPing. Like, those rallies and those protests were peak LARPing. Let's go out into the streets and go, quote unquote, fight for freedom. It's like, you're not fighting for freedom. You just want an excuse to punch someone in the face. Let's be honest. That's all this ever was. If you're punching each other in the middle of the street, if anything, it's actually causing us more problems, because then the people in the ivory towers are now looking down at us and laughing at us because we're distracting ourselves by fighting in the street. And at the time, a lot of us, including myself, were like, yeah, we're gonna go out there and fight for freedom, fight these commie scum. It was, but looking back in it, it was LARPing. That's all it ever was. And so I feel like, because of that time, because of the nature of things, a lot of these drunk dudes in Proud Boys shirts who called themselves Proud Boys caused a lot of trouble for themselves, and it all fired back on Gavin McInnes because they used the name that he started, and it really wasn't Gavin McInnes' fault. So when people come at him and say, "Oh, how dare you disavow the Proud Boys? You started the Proud Boys." Reality is that it became a group that he really didn't even start. It became something completely different, and he couldn't associate with it anymore. Not to mention, when you're a married man with children, you have children to feed and take care of, you're not going to focus on any of this. You're not going to think about any of this, because what matters more? A bunch of dudes who need a hobby and need to go bash people in the street. And here's the thing, I'll say the same thing about Antifa too. I won't just say about the Proud Boys. Antifa and Proud Boys need to get a hobby. You have got to stop going out in the middle of the street and bashing each other in, because it's not actually doing anything. If you see a problem in your community, do something about it. But slapping each other across the face is not going to do anything.
That's the thing, is like, and I've met and hung out with a lot of Proud Boys, and like a lot of their hearts are in the right place. But I have seen this sort of LARPing that you are talking about, and it's
they're
like,
there for the violence. There's a T-shirt that Joe Biggs wears every time he goes out, and I've called him on this to his face. So if he comes after me for saying this, he wears a shirt that says, "I'm here for the violence," because that's what everyone's there for. And I just don't want to part of it anymore.
I know, like men, they get excited. They need to. I like that energy, that spirit, but it could be channeled into a healthier, like more productive way. And
just
just beating people up is not the answer.
Learn to weld. Learn to work with wood. Raise some chickens.
Hang up a cabinet.
Just the real manly things that are important. Don't go bash people in the street and end up in jail, and your poor wife and children are wondering where you are.
Something? Bash a spider in. We need more of that.
We need more men to slap around spiders. That's what we need.
We do. From Sunny James, this my thing though. My husband has such an extensive criminal record. I'm not even surprised by social credit scores. There's no room for redemption in America. Class warfare is the only menu option. Interesting, right? I mean, I feel like Occupy Wall Street was sort of shut down a bit.
The reason why Occupy Wall Street had more value to it than a lot of these, like Battle of the Berkeleys, for example, is because Occupy Wall Street, everyone was on the same page. Nobody thought about left versus right, whose politician was next. We all agreed on the same thing. The banks are screwing us over. So what do? We're going to sit in the middle of the streets. We knew who our enemy was. With the problem the Battle of Berkeley is that the people in red hats believe communism was the enemy, which I stand by the fact that communism is the enemy, and the people who are Antifa obviously think fascism is the enemy, and I will say that fascism is bad. The problem is that the MAGA hat people looked at Antifa and thought, these are the guys causing the problem, and Antifa people looked at the MAGA hat people and thought, these are the guys causing the problem, instead of actually thinking, okay, how is our current system both attributing to communist values and fascist values at the exact same time? Let's look at the system. Nobody thought about the system. Everybody thought about this individual right over here. That's the problem. With Occupy Wall Street, everyone thought, here's the system right here on Wall Street. We're going to occupy it. We're going to sit here. We're going to stay here. And we're going to do what we can. And that's what actually got a lot of the attention it deserved. Bashing people in the street because you think this one person has the wrong thing is not the answer. Bonding together to actually fight a real system, that's different.
What does that look like to you right now?
Occupy Wall Street, honestly. I honestly was hoping with the whole I honestly was hoping with the whole GameStop thing that there was going to be a second Occupy Wall Street. I was really hoping with that.
Oh, I totally get you on that. Yeah, it was very exciting.
Occupy Wall Street, but brought to you by GameStop. Can you imagine if we had an Occupy Wall Street with GameStop tents and GameStop employees handing out water? That would be the best thing ever.
It was for sure like a power to the people moment. I wanted to show, did I actually bring this up right? I wanted to show your Twitter account because I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you were up to date on all the folks protesting Chappelle's Netflix special, like the Netflix employees. And at first I was proud of the CEO because he said, well, we stand by him. And then he recently came out and was like, oh, sorry, we didn't realize we were like hurting the feelings of people that worked here. And I'm like, isn't that convenient? He comes out with that like now after everybody has watched it, after all this buzz and press. he gets to backtrack and eat his
That's
words.
the point of being a comedian. Here's the thing: there's a big difference between somebody who's just a jerk to be a jerk, and someone who understands that comedy is a way of connecting to the human race, right?
Yeah.
So someone who just goes online and bashes someone online, right? There's a difference between someone who is an online persona, or not even online, just a plain old jerk on the street, right? A comic, as you know, Chrissy, because you're a comedian, you know that what you do with comedy is how you connect to the human race. It's how you connect to humanity. And Dave Chappelle did that very same thing. He connected to humanity. He brought up his trans friend. He explained why these jokes were important to talk about. And he explained why these jokes were important to the Black community. Because guess what, white trans people, has nothing to do with you, as he said. Because, and I've been saying this for the longest time too, I'm from the Bay Area. It is white liberal tier central. The amount of people living in their homes behind gated communities with Black Lives Matter signs in their front yard, who then went on to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now, if you are from the Bay Area, you may know this, for all the people who might be in the chat who might be from the Bay Area. Kamala Harris is single-handedly responsible for the many Black men in Oakland serving time in jail for simply having marijuana on their personnel. Now, I'm personally against the war on drugs as a proper libertarian / anarchist. And I don't care what it has to do with the fact that California now has legalized marijuana, and many of those men are still serving time simply for having marijuana on their personnel, a nonviolent crime, is because of someone like Kamala Harris. So for all these white women, because trust me, like white men don't care about this crap. The white, rich, liberal women put these Black Lives Matter signs in their front yard right next to a Kamala Harris and Joe Biden sign. I say Kamala Harris and Joe Biden because let's be honest here. Joe Biden didn't win the election. Kamala Harris did. And Kamala Harris would have never won that election if it wasn't for liberal white women. Right. Because liberal white women don't know shit. Okay? Liberal white women don't know anything. Okay? When I was working at a restaurant, this woman called in with the whitest voice possible.
The whitest voice possible?
You can tell, okay? I'm sorry. You can just tell. This was in Walnut Creek, so this chick was living large. I just imagine this woman on the phone, sitting on her couch with her glass of white wine, and she was saying to me, "Hi, so I'm not ordering right now, but I just think it's very important that you guys print out Spanish menus since we live in such a, diverse community. I just really think you should have Spanish-speaking menus." I'm like, you know what, ma'am?
Do you speak Spanish? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing is, like, she's like, and then this is the best part about it. I'm like, well, to be fair, ma'am, like, I just make the sandwiches here. I don't own, the restaurant or anything. And she goes, well, I really want to order some food for my gardeners, but they can't read the menu.
Oh my God. Because they're so stupid in Spanish.
They can't read English. So I think you guys should have Spanish-speaking menus because we live in a diverse community.
It's pretty similar. It's pretty similar.
White lady is living in her Walnut Creek mansion, ranting to me, a freaking waitress of all people, who works on minimum wage. Granted, it was part-time. It was
before you were worth $100,000 or whatever.
100 million.
100 million. Oh,
yeah,
right.
Well, I've always kept a job on the side of YouTube, because
smart. Yeah.
YouTube doesn't make me money. Oh my gosh, this idea that YouTube makes me money is absolutely ridiculous. But I just remember thinking, this lady is really complaining to me about how she can't feed her gardeners. And we need to make we, a small business, mind you, need to print out Spanish-speaking menus. Not as if we are already struggling as it is due to California tax laws. I mean, it was just absolutely psychotic. I was just like, oh my gosh, your poor gardeners, man.
That's really funny. That's like a cartoon you're describing.
Not even like the fact that they can't read, an English menu, but the fact they have to deal with her. Imagine working for that lady.
She's like, hola, a little bit mas up off the top. Gracias, Pedro. Quickly from Brie Larson's. Again, I'm amazed your channel survived Gavin McInnes. Yeah, I've had him on 3 times now, baby. He's smart. He's still sometimes, drop an N-bomb that I have to edit out. But other than that, it's been pretty great. Brie Larson again. Sometimes you just need to punch something in the face. Well, go to a boxing class. Don't punch people. Spineless for 25. What is this? New Zealand bucks? Spineless. Hi guys, managed to catch another podcast. Yay! Thank you, Spineless. I forgot one here. I'm gonna squirrel up. Torgo the White. Yep, affluent white female leftist. Awful. Oh, that's really clever.
Oh my gosh, I
We're
love
gonna use that. Oh, I love that.
I'm telling you, it's honestly the white female liberals are the worst because
I was there. I was one of them.
You know
I
what?
was on that path.
It's not even you, Chrissy. It's the fact that like at one point, like I think a lot of some of my views are fairly liberal in some cases. I don't believe in just conservative liberal. I think I have views on both left and right and in between. But it's the fact that it. Oh my gosh, Mom, please forgive me. I'm about to like just trash the crap out of you.
She probably doesn't watch this.
She hates me. She'll Google me enough. Here's the thing. People like my mother who just sit there and watch CNN and they do their online shopping on their laptop on their lap and they're drinking their white wine and like Donald Trump is just so mean. Oh my gosh. Who was the guy? Colin Powell, when he died and Occupy Democrats responded to Trump sending out that email about Colin Powell. It's like, I'm sorry, I burned a MAGA hat and I'm still going to dance with Donald Trump on the grave of a warmonger any day. Like, if it means pissing on the grave of someone as horrible as Colin Powell, I will gladly do it with Trump. And I'll tell Trump how I burned his MAGA hat while doing it. Because in the moment, I care more about pissing on the grave of a warmonger. I'm sorry. It's just, it's the amount that the things that people like who are part of Occupy Democrats and these people who their priorities are so set on hating Donald Trump or being as woke as possible, they lose the aspect of, maybe we shouldn't nuke children in the Middle East. Oh, but you know what? If we do it the gay flag waving, it's perfectly fine.
It's an easy position to have because you don't need to. I mean, like, there's no nuance, of course, right? It's broad strokes. You can just, it's a socially accepted, culturally accepted response to anything is to be like, oh, anti-Trump or somehow blaming Trump or blaming his supporters. It's just, it's very lazy and you don't have to think. And everyone's like, oh, yes, great. Fuck them. It's easy to join in on. I don't know, Ashton, if you had to run to do another live stream tonight.
I did have to really quick. Okay. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Robbie, let me know.
Okay. I've kept you over time, but I adore you and I can't wait to have you back. You're a delight. Where can people follow you if they're not following you already?
You can follow me on the Ashton Blaise on Twitter as well as Ashton Birdie on YouTube, and that is spelled ASHTON BIRDIE.
Thank you so much, Ashton. It was so great to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Chrissy. I really appreciate it.
Chat. Until next time. Bye.